Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma. We are back at you after somewhat of a week off, and what a week it's been, because the last time I was here, I had to cover the Aaron Rodgers signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers story all by my lonesome. So that is no longer the case, as my colleague, pal, a partner in crime, one Mr. Brian E. Roach, is here to, I don't know, share his thoughts, maybe drink your tears. I don't know, Brian. How's it going, man?
Well, the best thing I can do is show the same image that I sent you yesterday, which, it's Father's Day and happy Father's Day to everybody who is a father. And if you're not, that's okay too. But my daughter,
their fathers,
wrote this on her Father's Day card.
Oh,
which I don't know. Oh, there we go.
There
we go. All right, now we can see it. It said, "Happy Father's Day, Dad. I love you so much. P.S. Aaron Rodgers sucks."
I thought you were gonna put up the barf emoji. Let's just meddle right here, because my original plan was I'm eventually gonna drag him out of hiding. I was looking for Flash, Zach Celedonia. He's very much so in the camp of I like Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is improving the team. Aaron Rodgers gives you a shot. All this and that. I can't wait to have him on just to have another viewpoint. But Brian, for years we were accused of just being all sunshine and rainbows when it came to the Steelers organization. And really the first thing that tried me as being, I don't like being negative. Football's community, very few bad things to say about anybody unless they do something dumb, or somebody plays bad. There's fair criticism, right? But I'm not just going to come out and be like, oh, this guy sucks, this guy's bad. I don't want, stuff like that. I try to keep it analytical. I try to keep it professional. I try to keep it business-like. I try to think of it of if Aaron Rodgers were listening to this, would he laugh at it? Would he think these guys are clowns? Would he actually entertain being on the show? Things of that nature. You don't want it to ever come back around and bite you in the ass. But the first thing that really tried me was Ben retires and the Steelers sign Mitchell Trubisky. And I was just so adamantly against it. I didn't like it, but I still tried to find some positives in it until he actually started playing. It wasn't just this whole, well, hey, see, I told you so. Gotcha. I was right. Trying to fight and prove my point of view. And I find myself here again, multiple ways, because I was very cautiously optimistic with Russell Wilson. I kind of gave Justin Fields the same Mitch Trubisky treatment. Kenny Pickett was the unknown. And I've always been in Mason Rudolph's corner, although still unknown as to what he may have been able to do or whatever. So with Aaron Rodgers, I just see him as an aged player that his best time might be behind him. And I'm not sure that he offers a whole lot more for the Steelers. He could, he may not. It may just be in the middle. So I just try and see it. But this is a guy that took a Super Bowl away from the Steelers, 15 years ago. Really hard to kind of get in his corner, especially when we're like, hey, what have you done since then? And we've talked about this so many times with talking about other quarterbacks. It makes you gag a little bit. But as we said, is he a diva? Yeah, but now he's your diva. Now you got the uniform of your team on. So I will support him. I'm not trying to just drag him down, but at the same time, I'm not out here, cheerleading rah and super excited over his signing. So you weren't on last week. I got to do a whole show talking about it. Your first initial thoughts, because we continue to. He's the gift that keeps on giving. He's the best thing since Antonio Brown, who keeps on giving in other ways too.
Who's going to go be arrested for murder? Okay,
or attempted murder, alleged
attempted murder, alleged attempted. How do I feel about it? Well, I've said all along, I feel like every game this season, after the game is over, I'm going to have to take a shower, because I'm going to feel dirty. But do I think Aaron Rodgers makes the Steelers a better team? I think he probably improves the quarterback play from what we've seen over the past number of seasons since Ben retired. I think he's going to be a savior? Of course not. I don't think that at all. Do I think that there's a chance he's worse this year than he was last year? Of course. I mean, he's aging, and Father Time, as we know, catches up to all of us. Could he be better? There's this outside chance that he could be, because he was still recovering from the Achilles injury last year. He said he felt good by the end of the year. He says he feels fine now. Look, I will give him credit for making all the right noises now that he's here, saying all the right things, like he wants to, pass knowledge on to guys like Will Howard, that he's all in. All of that stuff sounds good. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt. Will I be happy that he's here? Not right away. I just won't. I can't be.
You're
Sorry.
not going out and buying a number 8 jersey then?
There will be no number 8 jersey ever. He can get us to Super Bowl and win. I'm still not buying his jersey. At that point, I could maybe get a helmet, but that's his. I'm not wearing his jersey on my back. No.
Well, my friend, I'm in the same camp. I had somebody got me my Russell Wilson jersey. I wasn't even going to buy one from China because I didn't have the best feeling that he was going to be around for a very long time. The reason I have a Rudolph one is he started playing in 2019. Ben was out for the season. He's a guy that's in his second year. He was still kind of new. I had some high hopes. It's like a cockroach, he keeps coming back too. You can't get rid of him. So I've gotten more than my fair, juice, my squeeze out of a Mason Rudolph jersey, but that's for another time, another place. I'm not running out to get a number 8. It's always, he says the right things right now. What's this look like when he's out there in Latrobe? Probably still the right things. What happens when it's week 5? And maybe the Steelers start the season like 1-4 or 1-3 or something like that. And there's a lot of pressure to perform. And the way we're looking at it is he's a year older. A lot of people still say, well, he's got the zing on the ball. He has a high completion percentage around the line of scrimmage. Arthur Smith's offense is going to be, is it going to be tailored to Aaron Rodgers, or is Aaron Rodgers going to bring his own brand of whatever? Are they going to rely on him to throw the ball 550, 600 times, whatever numbers he had last year? And that's kind of where I'm at, is because when you even extrapolate the numbers for somebody like Russell Wilson was only off by like a touchdown and a pick or two in either direction of Aaron Rodgers' numbers last year. Now, Rodgers would have thrown for more, a little bit, actually, and not even that for that many yards. I think I have the numbers. I'll find them. But of course, Wilson didn't play a full season, so you have to do projected. He could have had a really good game in there that throws off the mean, or he could have had really bad games that throw off the mean. The only fact for sure is he took way more sacks. Now, Rodgers took some sacks last year behind what I think is probably a better Jets offensive line in 2024, and we're going to be comparing these position groups from last year's 2024 New York Jets to this year's 2025 Pittsburgh Steelers. And I caught some flack for some of this, and we've mentioned some of it over past shows, but maybe not this in depth, right? The flack being a lot of this for the Steelers, we have a little less statistics or a little less of the known to go with, right? You get somebody like a Jalen Warren, who hasn't been a starting running back in the NFL for as long as a Breece Hall has with the Jets. And it's kind of hard to put them right side by side and go, oh, hey, you know what? This guy that has half as many carries is going to be just as good as the guy that's proven he could do it with twice as many. And that's where the offensive line is if we want to start somewhere. The Steelers still trying to bandage an offensive line up from the days of Big Ben Roethlisberger. Maybe finally found a good center in Zach Frazier last year out of West Virginia. The rest of it, you got Isaac Seumalo. He kind of slides into his first Pro Bowl, gets some recognition. We tend to think he's maybe one of the better players, right? But when you do the math, and I know the only thing we could go by with offensive linemen, unfortunately, is PFF, Pro Football Focus. We got to go by their scores. Yeah, because that's all we really have. We don't have we can't say, Zach Frazier, he plowed the way for 40 rushing touchdowns or something. Unless you have that, and you could be like, well, their run offense is one of the best in the league, like the Browns were a few years ago with Nick Chubb. Most of the players on the Steelers were not highly thought of last year, and they shouldn't have been. The line was kind of still a mess, as you had a rookie in Mason McCormick from South Dakota State. You had Broderick Jones playing out of position, Troy Fautanu not really getting on the field other than one game where he was like co-starting with Jones. If you remember, Jones got penalized like three straight plays against the Broncos, and then
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and then Fautanu goes out for the season. And Fautanu for that one game graded a 64.4, but there's only one of the Steelers guys from last year between Zach Frazier, Isaac Seumalo, Mason McCormick, and Broderick Jones that actually graded higher or graded above a 70 overall, and it was 76.8. Sixth at his position was Zach Frazier. Seumalo was even a 67.6. He's 38th. Mason McCormick, a 57.7, 87th percentile or 87% with the guards. Broderick Jones was 89th with a 58.5. And you compare that to, okay, Joe Tippmann, just a little bit lower. He was 9th. He was 3 spots lower, a couple percentage points at 73.4 than Zach Frazier as Aaron Rodgers center with the Jets last year. Elijah Vera Tucker, 77.7. Higher than anybody on the Steelers. He was 15th. John Simpson, 77.3, 16th. Tyron Smith, an older veteran as is Morgan Moses, but Tyron Smith last year, 73.7, he was 30th. Morgan Moses was actually a 63.3, 64th. But still, I think the Steelers would have taken him over even Broderick Jones. So right when we're talking about this, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of hope with a young offensive line that they could get this done. But when when Aaron Rodgers is already getting sacked 40 times behind a better line, is that on Aaron Rodgers? Is that on the Jets offense? Or is that on like the offensive line? And that's going to be a big question mark. Right now, I'm going to say he had better personnel with the Jets, and I don't know that helps a to-be 42-year-old quarterback.
Yeah. One of the things you said early on is one of the things that's just going to be hard to analyze here, which is the known unknowns, right? We don't know what the Steelers' offensive line is going to gel and look like this season, right? It isn't the exact same pieces as last season, but because of that, and because you have at least some measurables for people, whether they were playing out of position, what have you, you know that their offensive line graded higher than our offensive line last season. Does our offensive line have a chance to be better? Sure, you got a returning first-round pick that is going to take over on one side. But you have a bigger unknown with Broderick Jones going to the left, where he hasn't played at a professional level, really. So you don't know what that's going to look like. So, yeah, you'd have to give the nod to the Jets there and say the Jets had a better, essentially, position group on the offensive line than the Steelers do right now.
Yeah, that's where I'm at also. I wanted to rewind to one thing that I thought was kind of important to bring up about last year. Usually we're talking about, hey, Mike Tomlin sees so-and-so on the sidelines, and he's really enamored with this player, and then that's the player you see maybe perform well against the Steelers. You got to see it. You got to scout them. You got to do your homework on them all week, and then they come into Pittsburgh, and they make you look like fools, and you're like, I wish that guy was in a Steelers jersey. Did you ever have that impression last year when the Steelers faced the Jets with Aaron Rodgers in the lineup? I didn't. No. They tore him up.
No, yeah. Did not have that impression, no.
With a better line, and he's going to have to play against defenses very similar to Pittsburgh's defenses, except for the Bengals. I don't know what they've got. They got rid of Jermaine Pratt now. They don't have any edge rushers currently. Well, one's under contract that wants a new one. One's a rookie that hasn't signed. So, but the other, with the Ravens and the Browns, they're going to get after Aaron Rodgers some. So, just some numbers from that Aaron Rodgers game. It was a 37 to 15 Sunday night game shellacking in Pittsburgh. And Mr. Rodgers came out 24-39 for 276 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, both to an undrafted rookie slot corner, Beanie Bishop. And he got sacked the one time. He had a 70 quarterback rating. He didn't rush for anything. He also didn't fumble. They bottled up everybody else too, as far as Breece Hall. He only had 38 yards rushing, etc. He only took the 1 sack though, Rodgers did. So yeah, it wasn't, not even, he edged out Russell Wilson, who went 16 to 29 for 264, 2 touchdowns, no picks, took 1 sack. And that was the second start for Wilson, I believe. Wilson had the Giants right before. There was like those back-to-back New York games that were right in there. So, but are you expecting much more than what Russell Wilson did? And, I know it's just one game, but it's like, I wasn't very impressed last year. And like you said, Father Time's undefeated. I don't see it like when you have a younger player and they get a few more years and you're like, okay, yeah, like Justin Fields, for example. It's like, okay, he's gonna develop. We got time to develop him and everything like this. Aaron Rodgers is not only cooked, he could be overcooked.
Yeah.
He's been overdeveloped. And then it starts to go the other way. So you just have it, you got the peak, and now you're back down into the valley.
It's true.
I don't know. I wasn't impressed with that game. So
no. I think he has the potential to provide more stability and better play than we saw at the position overall last year. Yes. Do I think it makes a difference in the grand scheme of things? No. Do I think he's good enough to get them over the hump and win playoff games? No. Do I think he's going to take them to the Super Bowl? No. I don't think any of those things are true. But there is, because there are so many unknowns, and we'll get to it as we talk to the other position groups, there are so many unknowns that there's enough potentiality there to say, okay, they could actually be a better team with him than they were last year if all these position groups play up to or above their projected abilities. We'll see.
Yeah, potentiality. I like that one.
It's a word. I made it up. I like to make up words.
There's a lot of potentiality when you're talking about Pittsburgh. Some people they think the potentiality is that Aaron Rodgers comes in and he does all these things for the Steelers, and it's certainly built into his contract. Playoff win, divisional win, conference championship, Super Bowl. He's getting in, a few $100,000 up to, I think, $1 million or $2 million if he brings the prize home, right? If he does, you won't hear me say any other bad things. He'll be my best friend from here on out, but it's not my expectation whatsoever.
I won't. Look, this is the show where I get it all back off of my chest, and then moving forward, I'm not a stan. I'm not going to be an Aaron Rodgers stan. I'm probably not even going to be an Aaron Rodgers fan, but I will support him moving forward. This is my chance to just go, I'm still annoyed by this, and I didn't want him here, and I don't want him here right now. But that being said, once we get past this show, I'll have only legitimate criticisms to make based on what I see, not just whining.
Well, I'm still going to have to wait until we legitimately see anything. We're still like a month off from that.
Well, I will try.
Yeah.
And if he wins the Super Bowl, look, I'll just go, hey, didn't think it was going to happen. Glad it did. Thank you for your service. Please leave now.
And that's all right. We'll be right back. Same bat time, same bat channel, like we've been saying. Right back in the same boat, maybe, going over the waterfall. But back to some of the position groups too. Not just to besmirch Aaron Rodgers, because I could have fun doing that all day long. If he does help the young guys, if he does help like a Mason Rudolph, Mason, to me, you know what Mason's going to end up doing if he's got the aptitude for it? He's going to be a coach. Look at some of these guys like Kellen Moore, and they play behind, they become coordinators. There have been backup Ken Dorsey. You've seen him around. You know all the names. Frank Reich. They've all been like backup quarterbacks in the league. Doug Peterson, another one. Backup quarterbacks in the league, and they end up playing behind, or either playing behind like some really good quarterbacks, or they end up playing for some really good coaches, or both. And you have, I know Mason only had the 1 year off out of Pittsburgh, but he played behind Ben all those years. He's been with Mike Tomlin all those years. Now he's going to have Aaron Rodgers here. Like, I could see him becoming a coach. No joke. I'm like, some of the knowledge has to stick, maybe. So, but for Will Howard, hopefully there's some things he can glean off it. And hopefully Mr. Rodgers isn't a jerk and it just kind of realizes this is kind of one of his last hurrahs. Apparently he said he wanted to play in Pittsburgh or nowhere else. I don't know that I buy that. I told you a million times. I still think that Minnesota was, appealing to him. Anywhere else, he might not have had any other offers. I mean, look what he signed for, $13 million. And obviously, we haven't even mentioned that. There's no room for complaint there because they didn't throw $35-40 million at the dude, multiple years at him or anything like that. So, they were talking about this actually on one of the radio shows. Like, who else would you have thought? Everybody's like, oh, I don't know. My faith in Omar Khan is completely gone. Who else do you know that would have signed Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Aaron Rodgers over the course of the last 2 seasons for less than $20 million combined? A combined total, a combined tab for all 3 of those quarterbacks. That's some good general managing work, if I would say so. So, let's get back. We're going to look at some of the skill positions. I was talking Jaylen Warren a little bit against Breece Hall. And it's a tough one because I'd written some of these down in an article that was published last week. And somebody said, oh, man, you got Breece Hall completely wrong on this. And I'm like, well, Breece Hall has volume. He has almost 3,000 yards from scrimmage in 3 years, 565 touches. It's almost 1,000 yards more than Jaylen Warren's had. But Warren's only had 368 touches, 200 fewer touches, 1,000 more yards production for Hall. Warren's had to battle some injuries. He's also fumbled the ball some. Hall has 17 touchdowns in his career. Warren has 5. We don't know anything about Caleb Johnson. Kenneth Gainwell and Cordero Patterson are pretty much special teams type guys right now, as far as I see them. You might get them in for a carry or 2, but it's not somebody you're going to lean on. It's either going to be Warren or it's going to be Johnson. We don't know anything about Caleb Johnson coming out of the rookie out of Iowa right now. Now, the Jets, they had a rookie last year, Braylon Allen, carried the ball 92 times for 334 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had another 148 receiving yards with the score. So those are some kind of concrete numbers. It's still more than what Gainwell did with the Eagles, but I mean, Saquon just got everything when he was there. So with Najee Harris being the bell cow during most of Warren's time, kind of difficult for me to just be to put it crown Jaylen Warren the better of the 2 with the group. Breece Hall definitely the better back, at least at this juncture.
I think overall that's what you can say. Right? Again, it's and this is going to be a theme. It's the unknown. Do we know what Caleb Johnson is going to be? No. Do we know what Kenneth Gainwell is going to contribute? No. Do we know if Jaylen Warren is going to be able to handle a bulk of the workload or if he's going to get the bulk of the workload? No. You know Breece Hall is comparatively dependable. He's good in both the run and the pass game. He is consistent in contributing. So you just have to give the nod to the known versus the unknown. With that being said, that there is the potential for the Steelers running back room to be a better room. It's just not something you can statistically dictate at this point.
Yeah. True or false? Aaron Rodgers, just a guy, pass. But would it benefit him, or how has it benefited him to hand off the ball over the years? Think about some of the backs he had in Green Bay. When he finally got Aaron Jones there, for example, it really complemented the offense. Now, one of the knocks that's been in Green Bay going back to Rodgers still having a tenure there is looking for that wide receiver because, after Devontae Adams left, and Devontae Adams, this goes into the next group, Brian, with the wide receivers. I'm not certain 100% whether we feel or whether you feel that the Steelers even have a pretty solid wide receiver group as a full unit, even just comparing them to the Jets last year, just compare them anywhere. Does Rodgers have the targets to actually throw to compared to like a Devontae Adams, a Garrett Wilson, and Allen Lazard? All his buddies, he had Randall Cobb come back up there too, but they had some struggles trying to get some guys like, how long's Romeo Doubs been up there in Green Bay? I know it hasn't been during the total Jordan Love kind of time, but several trying to just find like the other complements or giving Aaron Rodgers some guys on defense instead of offense. Wasn't very happy about it. Now you look at what the Steelers have done. They've gotten rid of George Pickens and they only have DK Metcalf there, and Metcalf wasn't really lighting up the scoreboards much in Seattle when he left, just right here. Still really good physical specimen, might I say. Probably better than anybody the Steelers have had as of late, but still a question mark there as well.
Absolutely. I mean, look, there's no question that the Jets receiving core is better than the Steelers receiving core. I don't think that's even a comparable comparison right now. You know, I've been banging the drum for DK for ever since he came out and was drafted, right? So I'm thrilled to have DK Metcalf here, and I think he has the ability to be a solid and good wide receiver one for the Steelers. I think that maybe Aaron Rodgers will find a way to develop some chemistry with him, and they'll be able to take advantage of some things. The problem is from there, the drop off remains the exact same way it was last year without George Pickens here, which we predicted was likely to happen, right? Who is your number two? They didn't find one in the draft. You're hoping that Roman Wilson becomes that guy, or is it part of the package of guys that become this number two? Maybe it's Pat Freiermuth. Maybe they go out and get somebody else. The likelihood that the receiver room as it stands right now remains as it is. We said it last year that it wasn't going to, and then it did because they couldn't get the job done. They couldn't find somebody who was willing to take a deal with the Steelers. That could be the same thing this year. From all reports that they're saying the Steelers are lowballing people on offers. Of course they are. That's what you always start doing, right? You don't go out and go, we'll give you a 1 for that guy. You go out and go, would you take a conditional 6th, right? Would you take a 5th? And see what somebody says, and then you let it percolate, right? You drop the little thing in the pot there, you let it percolate, and then when nobody else comes around, you go, hey, that conditional 6 looking pretty good right now, isn't it? You still, what do you think? And see what happens. They're going to try and add another piece. I think they kind of have to try and add another piece. Otherwise, they're in the same boat they were last year, where they've got a legit 1 and a bunch of guys, and you shut down 1. That doesn't mean you're going to have anybody else take over.
A potential legit 1. I'm not sure he ever ascended to a 1. Maybe just on the depth chart. But in terms of the league, I don't know that a lot of other teams view George Pickens as a 1.
Potential, maybe.
Yeah, the potential 1 there. And I'm not trying to rain on his parade, but there's very clear distance between DK Metcalf being a 1 and George Pickens being a 1. If you were to,
I wasn't talking about George Pickens. I was talking about DK.
Oh, I'm sorry. But DK,
George Pickens was not a 1. He had the potential to be a 1.
And wanted.
He wanted to be a 1. He was not. Last year we had a potential 1 and a bunch of guys. This year we have a 1 and a bunch of guys. And we still aren't as good as the Jets receiving room.
No, because Garrett Wilson could probably be a 1. And I know Lazard they kind of like is still never really a 1 when he was in Green Bay, but they tried to kind of fit that round peg, square hole type thing, or the other way around, square peg, round hole, with Lazard being like a 1B or something like that. But I think I think the biggest thing is Aaron Rodgers an upgrade over Geno Smith when it comes to DK Metcalf's production? I have to say yes. Even at this stage of Aaron Rodgers' career. So those numbers might take a bump over where DK has been the last couple of years. He's still, 28 years old. He's in his prime.
Yeah. I think that's a possibility. I do think Aaron Rodgers probably is going to give a little better quarterback play than Geno Smith.
I'm surprised you didn't have the sarcasm sign starting to come up the other way around.
Because I'm not being sarcastic about that.
No, he's not.
But I do think that's probably the case. I don't think. I think that this move was the move they had to make. I don't think they had a lot of other options. Anything else they did. Do I think there was any move that was going to be dramatically better and put them as a Super Bowl contender? No. Maybe if they got Matt Stafford. Maybe, right? Like, Kirk Cousins wasn't going to do it. Justin Fields wasn't going to do it. Sam Darnold wasn't going to do it, right? What else were they going to do, right? And this way, they didn't have to pay a ridiculous amount of money. They didn't give up a ton of draft capital. They didn't do something dumb to put themselves in a position to try and go for the championship this year, knowing that they probably didn't have the guys to do it. I feel like, okay, it's a move that doesn't have a tremendous amount of upside, might have more downside than it has upside. But again, I keep saying this over and over again. I'm okay with it. I'm okay if we stink up the joint next year. I'm okay with it.
Steelers just don't lie down for anybody, man.
I know
it
they
just
don't.
Doesn't work. So last group, tight ends. There's not a lot. It's actually kind of surprised me because just on the surface level, the brand name, you're talking about Pat Freiermuth and Tyler Conklin. And okay, Aaron Rodgers throwing to either one of these guys, probably going to improve the tight ends, either one of them. But is there one do we believe that one specifically is better than the other when we're doing this comparison? Some people are going to say Freiermuth, and Freiermuth to me he's had some highs and lows. When he came in here with Roethlisberger, it was just like, man, this guy's lights out. You know, the potential's there, catching everything within his radius. But he's had a couple fumbles. He's had a couple drops that have been disappointing. Nothing as big as Mark Andrews, of course, in the playoff game with the Ravens. But Tyler Conklin kind of in the same category as well. He is a guy that's, he catches maybe 40, 50 balls, 500-ish yards receiving here or there. Last year was 449 with 4 touchdowns. He didn't have a touchdown the season before, but had 621 yards without Aaron Rodgers. That's probably why he didn't have any touchdowns. That's very much so the Pat Freiermuth kind of statistics. The rest of the guys, like, how do you really put like a Darnell Washington into this category? You know what I mean? And when I look back at this, I kind of forgot that Darnell Washington, he actually did a little bit last year. You know, I forgot he had one of those. He had 19 catches, 200 yards. He had 9 first downs out of those. So like half of his receptions went for a first down. It was unbelievable. Didn't really think about it. You just think, hey, they're not feeding this guy the ball enough. Maybe Aaron Rodgers does that. So I almost have a push on this because I think if Tyler Conklin's in the same exact situation, and he's played longer than Pat Freiermuth has too. He's a 7-year veteran going on 8 years in the National Football League. He's got a little more, behind his name, but he doesn't have a ton. He's got 11 receiving touchdowns over that span. 2,544 yards. Pat has in 4 years has almost 2,200 yards and 18. So maybe I give the edge in this case to the Steelers tight ends. This will be better, and this might be better overall because Arthur Smith is known to feed the tight ends, which should maybe be a better complement with Aaron Rodgers being there. So I don't know if you got anything more to add. I know I chewed a little off of that. We get over to the other stuff too. So,
this is the one area I'm going to give the edge to the Steelers. I think the Steelers tight ends are probably a better package group than the Jets tight ends are. I like Pat. Do I think Pat is the next iteration of Heath? No. Is he as dependable? No. But he's also potentially more explosive than Heath was at times. I think he's slightly different type of tight end. And we'll see. He played better, I think, with Ben than he did with any of the other quarterbacks of lesser quality. And maybe that he will play better with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe Aaron will be able to spot him more, lead him more, throw him open more. Be able to take advantage of his game. We'll see how that all turns out. But in this instance, I do think the Steelers probably have a better position group than the Jets did. Overall, the nod still goes to the Jets, but in this one, I'll give the nod to the Steelers.
Oh, that's mighty kind of you. What do we?
I don't
think?
want to be all doom and gloom.
That's fair enough. I'm surprised you didn't want to bring up Jeremy Ruckert with the Jets. 3 years he's had. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Anyways, moving on. One of the things that's been talked about is close games that the Jets were in. There were some. I mean, Aaron Rodgers only won 5 games last season, correct? So what happens when he doesn't have to deal with 4 or 5 different kickers like they did in New York last year? And I mean, you name somebody, and they probably pulled them off the street to pull some kicking duties. They had Anders Carlson for 5 games. They had Greg Zuerlein for 8 games. Spencer Schrader, Greg Joseph, Riley Patterson. They had 5 different kickers, and overall they only converted 71.4% of their field goal attempts and 90.3 of their PATs. Boswell converted all of his point after attempts, and I think I had the numbers here. Let's see. I mean, Boswell was an all-pro last year, right? 93.2% of his tries, all but one attempt under 50 yards, and then all 35 of his extra point attempts. That's a weapon. I mean, when a guy kicks 6 field goals in a game and can win you the game just kicking field goals, that's going to help and benefit Aaron Rodgers. So I'd say that with the special teams. Brian, how you feeling about the Jets coaching over the last 2 years versus what the Steelers have that Aaron Rodgers is coming into? A little less of when you're talking intangibles, the circus, the control, better coaching, better offensive coordinator, better.
This will be controversial, but it shouldn't be. Yeah. It'll be controversial to say this, and there'll be a lot of Yinzers out there going, "Oh, you're crazy," but it shouldn't be. No, the Steelers are. That's. It's not even close. It's not even close.
No,
it's not comparable.
No,
it's a much better situation coaching wise than it was on the Jets. Just stop. It is.
Yeah, Robert Salah, defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. You had Nathaniel Hackett lose his play calling duties after Salah was sacked last season. It's just, and then you take Aaron Rodgers out of New York, out of that big Apple media circus that's up there, and you place him in Pittsburgh. I think that's a better overall situation for him. The other things that happened with the off season, there were a number of speculations. Aaron Rodgers has a wedding ring on now. I don't know if I mentioned a little birdie had said something about that or not. Sometimes I don't repeat things that I'm told because I keep that in confidence, but now it's public info. That was one of the things. Was he was looking around, is Pittsburgh a place that I want to live?
It's nice that he settled down at 41. Finally putting some roots in and grounding himself. Ben did it after he almost killed himself on a motorcycle. So, now we don't have to worry about that.
Well, Rodgers was dating Shailene Woodley for a little while, too. And then I also heard from someone else, I think it was Solomon Wilcots was mentioning, it was one of the XM guys that said that Rodgers was tending to a sick friend as well. So I don't know that I saw that anywhere else, but if that was the case, it might have been Ryan Leaf, because Ryan Leaf said he's pretty good friends with Rodgers, and he's on one of the shows during the week, and I was like, whoa, I'm like, is that like the thing? And that doesn't come out publicly. It gives a whole different sense of humanity versus a guy that's just holding the team hostage. You're waiting for him to say the right things, and instead he's getting his life together, with his life, his partner of choosing, a spouse, or helping out someone that needs the care, needs the assistance. Those things, they should be bigger than your job. And football's a job at this point. So if he misses a little bit of football and shorts because he's taking care of that, I'm not gonna say anything bad about the guy for doing that, right? So
I don't care that he didn't come to minicamp. We said, or to OTAs. We said minicamp is the cutoff. He was there at minicamp, so I don't have a complaint about that. Whatever was going on with his personal life is fine. I mean, the guy's played for a billion years. He doesn't need that. What he needs is to get in there and get the chemistry with the team, to understand Arthur Smith's playbook, to get the timings down so that he can continue, and he can do all that through minicamp and training camp. That was not going to be the issue at any given point. And I'm not one that ever thought he was holding the Steelers hostage. I said long ago, in my mind, the Steelers made him an offer. He said, "I'll let you know," and that was it. I don't think they were sitting there circled around in the room with their phones in front of them going, "Is Aaron going to text us today? Is the day? Oh, I don't know. Oh, what will we?" I think they were like, "Fine, we've made him the offer."
There it is. Everybody,
yeah,
all the cameras were there for minicamp, man. Like, definitely. So, well,
I just don't buy that holding hostage thing. I don't think that's what happened. He took the time he was going to take. The Steelers knew he was going to do it. They had made their offer, and they were done, right? That was it. It's like, okay, you're either coming or you're not. If you come, great. If you don't, we've made the arrangements we're going to make, and we'll move forward with who we got.
Yep. I think, we're out of time for more of this today, but we got to talk about what this looks like against the rest of the AFC North. I think Aaron Rodgers joining the Steelers, maybe even if he didn't, the Steelers might still have a slight edge. I don't know. Maybe they didn't. Maybe that's being a little bit too much hyperbole.
Homerish.
Yeah, over the Browns with Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, and I wonder if they're.
All right, I'm going to ask you this, just because. Okay. Why not? You brought up the Browns.
Yeah,
you brought them up. I tried to find out what the reporting was on Shadur Sanders for minicamp with the Browns, and I could find people who said he sucked and it was terrible, and I could find people who said he was the best and he should be the starter. I couldn't find anybody in the middle. What have you heard?
It seems like it's an extreme, and I think there's people that are really big fans of him from playing in college. I think people were shocked. I think people are in defense of their draft Twitter takes, as usual. So they want to right fight it and be, hey, I got this guy right. Everybody else was wrong. They took him late. They got 4 quarterbacks.
I know.
So are they going to cut Flacco?
So
I mean, Flacco is kind of the. I know Kenny Pickett was sitting there. I was laughing at the media day pictures of the way Pickett. I wish I had the photo here. Pickett holding the ball by the nose of it, and I was like, it's the smaller part of the ball. It's not very flattering. It almost looks like an AI hand the way it was gripping it with the gloves. But I'm just like, is he the starter or is Flacco the starter? Because either of those guys go out on the street, they're going to probably join up with another team, unless Flacco's older. If his arm's blown out or something like that, but I'm sure he could still find work somewhere. Pickett, he's bounced around now. This is his 3rd team. And then you got 2 rookies, both of which I think if you throw them on the waiver wire, or Pickett would still end up on the waiver wire, somebody's going to snap them up, more than likely, for how cheap that is and how low risk their contracts are. Hell yeah. So I don't know what this team's going to do. They're going to put somebody on IR? Like, is Sanders or Gabriel going to go on IR? Join Watson over there? Because they still got Watson technically on the roster, too. It's like all the quarterbacks. It's like Oprah giving them out. You have a quarterback. Browns, you can take this quarterback and this quarterback and this quarterback. But anyways, I finished doing a yard sale just over the weekend, dude. And you're talking about haggling and you're talking about the contract. It just made me think of this guy that came up. He wanted a big pile of movies I was selling. And it was only like $2 a piece, and there's good stuff in there. You know what I mean? It's not like a bunch of like just stuff, junk nobody wants, but nobody wants physical movies anymore. Everybody's streaming. And he's talking me down to less than $1 a piece for him for the whole group or package. We go back and forth, everything like that. Aaron Rodgers had said it wasn't about money. So, and I guess it wasn't in the end. Omar Khan, hey, if this gets the Steelers a little further down the road, closer to sniffing a championship, we're going to talk about that. I think that's going to be what we're going to talk about next as we're waiting for training camp at the end of July. We're still stuck in the middle of June. So it's just
all right. I got to tell you my yard sale story now to go along with your haggling story. So we used to have yard sales at least once a summer, right? That was our attempt to offload the excess crap that we had that we didn't want anymore. And what would happen therefore all during the year is my wife would tell me we couldn't throw things away because I was depleting her stock for the yard sale. But that being said, we'd have the yard sale. There's a woman who lives across the street, maybe 2 blocks down, a very cranky, crotchety, older woman, in the vein of, the
you with
standard,
the wig.
No, much worse than me with a wig. So she comes over. My wife has this little teeny glass teapot thing, right? Little decorative thing. It's marked a quarter, 25 cents, right? It probably cost $10 when somebody bought it. It was marked a quarter. The woman comes up and goes, "Would you take a nickel?" And my wife goes, "No, it's a quarter." And she goes, "Fine." Puts it down, stomps across the street, goes back to her house. And we're like, "It's a quarter. Do you even have a nickel in your purse?"
Hey man, she needed to go shop at Aldi. She didn't want to give up her the last quarter.
Hey, don't give Aldi a bad name now. Aldi's pretty nice.
No,
Aldi's a pretty nice store.
But you need a quarter to be able to take the card out, so she couldn't give it up.
That's true. It's the only thing that really bothers me about Aldi is the stupid quarters in the carts.
Yeah, but you know what? Even the market provides for that as well. There is like a little keychain thing, and it's like in the shape of a quarter, and it just goes in far enough to click the clicky thing, and then you can go about your shopping and whatnot. And I think you could do it and just release it, and then just be a complete menace to society, and leave a cart out there in the lot without a quarter in it. And now that person that gathers the carts no longer gets the bonus of doing so. So.
Too bad for them.
I know. Imagine that though, buying a $3 thing just so you didn't have to carry a quarter. I get it. Like, I'd forget quarters. I have like a little change thing in the car, just
Me too.
in a couple bags too, just in case I end up at Aldi. But I'll end up there soon enough, man. 4th of July cookout later in a few weeks. So
got some good burgers at Aldi. I like good burgers.
They got lots of good stuff, but we'll table that for another time, my friend. Thanks for joining me once again. Always fun talking football. Sorry, audience, that we were gone a little bit longer, but we went from Friday, from the previous show over the weekend, let it simmer a little with the Aaron Rodgers stuff, and we're back here now on an earlier week schedule, because now we're starting to get on track to line up with opening of training camp in a month. So look back for us here early next week. I think we're going to talk about the AFC North, those other quarterbacks, those other teams, and see if there's any other movement on the Steelers end. Still, it's going to be quiet, I think, until training camps start to heat up and you really see what you've got. They just had a little bit of that with mini camp, but just not enough maybe to pull the trigger on those rumored John L. Smith. Gabe Davis came in and left without a contract. Maybe he's not 100% healthy. Maybe they'll give him another go in a month and see what his knee looks like. So, but they're definitely looking, and there's definitely some rumors. We'll see what Terry McLaurin is doing there in Washington. So he's getting up there a little bit.
I'm all in for Scary Terry.
I would take him. I would definitely
take him in a heartbeat. Depending on what it takes to get him.
Always true, but the Steelers have that draft capital, and we'll see what they do with it in the next year. Folks, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My name is Joe. His name's Brian. And thank you for watching or listening, wherever you may be. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Don't forget Spotify next day, unless I forget to do it. And that's what happened last week. So Spotify listeners or watchers had to wait a little bit longer. I'll try not to do that to you this time around. Until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.